All right, I'm trying to do a face so that it saves as my thumbnail for this video. So hopefully the first video, the first shot that that shows up for this particular video is me making a silly face. Hi, Mom. Hi, Gripside. What's up, Gripside? Welcome, Gripside. We are probably going to talk about Star Wars at some point. This is Aristotle Full Throttle, and we talk about movies here. We talk about all kinds of things every day at noon, Pacific Standard Time, and we're live on Instagram. We're live on, YouTube. We're live on the things. Trying to get to figure out how to stream this live also on Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch at the same time. If I could do all three of those, I could probably also pull a rabbit out of my ass. It seems like a pretty tough trick, but I'll manage. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm Aristotle Full Throttle. As always, today's particular topic, I figured, resonates with how the general public is reacting right now. It's in the zeitgeist that perhaps we should all start to look inward and all start to look outward and really reconcile. Come to the realization that perhaps society isn't as fair as we always thought it was. The ideal of fairness is there. The idea, the hope of having fairness in our society is absolutely one of the things that we love to pursue. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness in American society, these are our ideals and they're great and they mean well. However, the execution of them has not been ideal. We need to work toward equality. This society, American society in particular, has not yet achieved it, but it is something we strive for and we move closer to every day. And right now we're watching a crazy, moving, really powerful movement happening, not just in America, but all over the planet Earth. If you live in the planet Earth, I think this is planet Earth Prime, if we're going to look at all different universes. Hopefully we're in planet Earth Prime. But if you're looking around the planet, people are coming out. They're supporting the group. They're supporting the group effort. Sorry, I had water in my beard. When you grow a beard, it turns out it collects things. I've not shaved in probably 2-3 months. And this is what happens. And what you do is you go through life and you collect ideas, new attitudes. You adjust things about your behavior in life. And also when you have a beard, you collect things in it, like food and water and drink. All kinds of things just add up. It's delightful. It's part of the charm of having a beard. You know what I'm talking about, Gripside. So today we're talking about the particular trope, the white savior trope in Hollywood movies and very famous movies. There's this ongoing thing where we watch a character. First, we have to really recognize that there have been many injustices in American history, right? There's a saying that goes around, certain campaign slogan called "Make America Great Again." I think when America started, we tried to aim for greatness. We set a target far off in the distance, saying that is greatness over there, let's move toward it. And we have not yet arrived. We've not yet arrived at greatness. It's something that we want. It's something that we hope to move toward. But I think if you feel that America was once great at one point, you might have a big blind spot for many of your fellow Americans. Many, many black and brown Americans have not had the greatest time in the United States. However, the United States can prove that, hey, even if you're an idiot billionaire, you can one day be president. That's hopeful. That is one hopeful thing about, I gotta say, the only positive thing I could take away from this presidency is like, oh, wow, it's true. In America, just about anybody can be president. As long as they were born here and over 35, which are the only requirements. What's up, Will? Hello. Today we're talking about the white savior trope in Hollywood. And not just 2 years ago, the movie Green Book won Best Picture. It was directed by one of the Farrelly brothers. It stars Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. And we still haven't really grown out of this idea that maybe in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when things were really rough in the South, when people were trying to work toward integrating black people and white people in society and actually trying to figure out a way to live side by side. You've got a movie like Green Book, which has a character who happens to be black, and he is a multi-doctorate, multi-hyphenate musician and genius by all accounts. And the story is being told through the character Viggo Mortensen plays, and that character is the doctor, the multi-hyphenate, the genius's driver, his car driver, the guy from like Brooklyn, New York, who's just like, hey, I don't know nothing about nothing. Let me drive this guy around and actually learn about how not to be racist. And I think the thing that we're learning right now is it's really difficult to just not be racist. We have to learn how to combat racism. We have to learn how to figure out, oh, what are these thoughts that I have? What are these ideas that I have? These attitudes, these behaviors. We got to look inward and say, what am I doing that can either help or hurt the cause? Everybody wants the same thing. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. I think everybody wants that. What happens is racism makes that difficult for some people. It creates a power struggle. It creates a dynamic in society of a privileged group and an underprivileged group, or many underprivileged groups versus very few privileged groups. And that dynamic makes it difficult to create an equity, equality. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is equally pursued. It's not as easily pursued by everyone in this society because of that. And we got to work on that. Got to look inward. Got to figure out what we're doing to contribute or to make the problem. Contribute to the cause or take away from the cause. And that is being anti-racist, working against it actively. When you see it, when you feel it, when you do it, when you have an idea, maybe challenge your own ideas. Use some critical thinking. Use some insight. Use some empathy. Some of the movies that we're going to talk about today are Green Book, The Help. These are in the news lately. The Blind Side. All kinds of. We can even talk about Avatar if you want. Avatar, The Last Samurai. We talk about Dances with Wolves. This goes on and on and on and on and on. I tell you. Thank you. Also, there's a live fundraiser for the ACLU, which helps protect our liberties as an organization. And we definitely need the ACLU. Come on now. We want free speech. We want to protect our liberties. We need help for them to step in and actually defend what is in the actual Constitution when people like the president try to limit and really tear up the idea of what is in our Constitution. Doctor of Thugonomics, The Last Samurai. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, you know what the samurai needed 100 years ago? You know what the samurai needed? The incredibly well-trained, highly skilled warriors called the samurai. The very honorable group called the samurai that lived in Japan. They needed a white guy. They needed Tom Cruise to come in and save them and become the last samurai and the greatest samurai. They could not have done it themselves. They needed someone like that. There's a lot of situations where people come in, they step in, and they're like, which is weird because we're just so used to seeing movies that are told from that viewpoint. Hey guys on YouTube, Tatyana Jaffe, Ange, what's up? Good afternoon. Let's get ready to chat. Let's get ready to rumble. You know, there's a lot of movies like this. And for some reason, I think it has something to do, and I'm just going to pontificate or speculate here. I think it has something to do with this generalized feeling of guilt. We today would like to think, how could anybody have seen and witnessed all of that injustice in society, all of that mistreatment of black Americans? How could people have stood around and watched that happen without have stepping in or intervened in some way, in some heroic way, to stand up for the people who were downtrodden in society. And so we kind of rewrite history, and we have characters like in the movie Hidden Figures. Kevin Costner plays a character who says to the women who were working, I believe, at NASA as calculators. They would calculate all of the telemetry and all that stuff so that they could land people on the moon, and these women happen to be black. And there's a character who says, well, the bathrooms are segregated. I'm going to step in and make it so that these women can use the bathroom. I'm going to say that these women can watch the missile launch with their own eyes in person. And by the accounts of the actual women who were the calculators, they were like, yeah, we didn't get to watch the missile launches. We had to sit at our desks and watch them. So that was fictional in the movie. And also Kevin Costner, that character didn't exist in real life. He was made up for the movie so that audiences would feel like they were, how could anybody witness that injustice and not have stepped in to save these poor, helpless black women in the South? But that's what you get. That's what you get sometimes in Hollywood. You get a lot of tone deafness. What they want is people to go see these movies. And people don't want to go see a movie, particularly, I guess, large amounts of white folks don't want to go see a movie where they have to witness and feel guilty about the injustices that have occurred throughout history toward black people in American society. They don't want to go see that. They're like, listen, I just want to see a movie that makes me feel good and makes me feel like, oh, good thing we're not living in those times anymore when black people were mistreated by the police or black people were held down and oppressed in society. Good thing we're not living in that time anymore. But suddenly, in the last 2 weeks, I guess there's been an awakening of sorts. People have realized, oh, this is real, isn't it? Damn it, I was just about to say that white people hate feeling guilty. Yes, it's true. I think there's there's a truth to that. You don't want to necessarily see a movie and try to identify with the characters or have no character with whom you can identify. And Kevin Costner was invented for the movie Hidden Figures so that there was at least someone who was white who's standing up for what's right. But a lot of times there was not that person. There were not. So there's a problem with a lack of representation of how many black heroes there are who stood up for themselves and were their own saviors. Movies like Malcolm X, perhaps, by Spike Lee, showed that, Malcolm X was ready to do the work. He was ready to hit the ground running. He was ready to do all that stuff. And then there aren't necessarily any kind of white saviors in that movie. But you got that. You tend to have that a lot. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a movie where a black guy comes in to save a bunch of white people. It's hard to find. Is there a movie like that? I wonder. I mean, I could think of a movie I saw in school called Conrack, and it's a movie from around 1971. I guess it stars, let's see, Jon Voight. And, hey, Tino, what's up? Conrack, 1974. It stars Jon Voight, and of course he goes to a poor school district in the South. I believe it's South Carolina or somewhere. It's literally on a little island, and it's a bunch of black kids, and of course Jon Voight comes in to save all these children, and it's based on a true story. And I don't know if they're all bad. I think at some point it was good in the sense that it gave white folks a window into a world that they don't really know how to connect with necessarily. They may not have gone to see these neighborhoods in the world. Maybe they know they exist. Maybe these neighborhoods weren't personalized for them. So they were given a way to identify to these groups of folks through a familiar face, someone who is white, who can kind of shine a light on some of the problems that there's no connection to. Because maybe people were afraid, they have like xenophobia, they don't want to explore, they don't know what's actually going on. So to some extent, are these movies a good thing? Were these movies a good thing? I think to some extent they do feel good. Sometimes you can enjoy a movie like this. I didn't hate Green Book, to be honest. I thought it's a cool story, but I see the problems. I see the problems with it. What's up, Travis? We're talking about the white savior trope in Hollywood movies and how that is. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the magical black man, which is another trope. Today we're talking about the white savior. You know, that's funny that I say the white slave comment because it's Freudian. I was just thinking about how in Alabama and Mississippi, slavery was just added to this. Abolition of slavery was just added to the state constitutions as recently as like 10, 20 years ago. In 1999. That is the year. 1990. I'm not saying 1899. 1999, Mississippi abolished slavery officially. It is a federal offense to own slaves, but in 1999, Mississippi was like, you know what? We're going to write this in ink in our state constitution. We're going to ink this. Instead of just penciling it in. I find that hilarious because there was a show in the 90s that Michael Moore had, and there was a really funny comedian actor named Rusty Cundiff, and Rusty Cundiff also made that movie Fear of a Black Hat. That is a funny movie from the 90s, and it was a spoof on all of rap, essentially gangster rap, and how gangster rap turned into like weird R&B and all this stuff. It's a funny movie if you get the chance to watch it. But Rusty Cundiff was also a comedian who wrote sketches, and he wrote a sketch on the show that Michael Moore had. I forget the name of the show, where he noted, and this is around 1996, 1997. Rusty Cundiff happens to be a black American, and he noted that the Mississippi State Constitution still did not abolish slavery. So what he decided to do was kind of a sketch, a funny stunt, where he got a bunch of white guys and made them his slaves. He had about 8 dudes, and he's like, I can afford about 8 white guys, and they're all gonna. And then he was calling them like Jim Bob Cundiff and Freddie Bob Cundiff and Kevin Bob Cundiff and Bob Cundiff. They all took his last name because they were his white slaves. And it's a very funny sketch because it's illustrating the absurdity of the fact they did not outlaw it officially. So he took a bunch of white actors who were playing slaves. It wasn't real. It was a joke. They got chained up, and then he took them down to the police station, and he was showing off his slaves to the police. He's like, these are my slaves. So it was a black man who owned 8 white slaves, and they were doing yard work in his house. They were mowing the lawn, clipping the hedges. And he's like, this is great labor. I don't have to do any of this. It's a great illustration of the absurdity of the concept of slavery. What's up, 13? Hey, Klingon. We're talking about the white savior trope in Hollywood. And, in 2015, Ange has updated me. I believe, was that Alabama or was that Mississippi? So yeah, 2015 is the year. Can you believe that? That's how much the South wants to hold on to that stuff. I find it hilarious in the most ironic way that now they're actually taking down all those Confederate statues. Someone finally admitted, oh, these are racially insensitive. These statues represent the Confederacy, and the Confederacy fought to preserve slavery. Guys, this was their number one issue. Lest there be any confusion that the Confederate flag and the Confederacy, lest there be any confusion, their goal was to keep slavery and the Union had abolished it. And they were like, nah, we want free labor, and that's our way of life. That is what the Confederate flag represents. People sit there and say they want to learn history, they want to know about their roots. You don't want, if you're proud of that, you can F right off. So, yeah, it's some crazy stuff. Mississippi, 2015. That's what Ange NO says. So I am just aghast at that fact. But here's a fun story from when I was on the road in a rock and roll band. We were in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, the capital. If I'm wrong, may I be struck down now. We were driving through the main area, and I saw the Capitol building, and I was like, just picture this, me looking out the window. I was in the back seat on that drive. I wasn't driving, but I was looking out the window, and just picture me going, hey guys, wait, stop the van, pull over. And then me getting out of the van in front of the Capitol building, taking out my camera and saying, hey guys, get a picture of me. So I stood in front of the Capitol building in South Carolina while it waved the Confederate flag. This is about 10 years ago or so. The Confederate flag, the American flag, and the state flag. So I just was like, I have a big shit-eating smile on my face standing out in front of the Capitol building in South Carolina because I just loved the irony. I love taking the piss. I love making fun. I love sarcasm. So there's a picture of me just going, hey, everybody. This is hilarious. And I wanted to make sure we had, you could see the flag, the Confederate flag, waving behind me. And they just took that down just a few years ago. The South Carolina, they were like, hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't wave a Nazi flag, essentially, continually. The Confederate flag, guys, dig this, is like if you were to live in Berlin or Germany and there were statues of Hitler, there were statues of people from the SS, from Hitler's, there were Nazis. Say they're waving Nazi flags at Auschwitz or something. Maybe not even at Auschwitz, but there's a public square and there's Goebbels. There's a statue of Goebbels or Mengele. These were not people who were fighting for what we believe in. These were people who were literally fighting on the opposite side of what we believe in. The Civil War was a war fought to preserve the Union. And guess what? The Union done got preserved. We are the United States, not the Confederate States. So the winner gets to keep the statues they want and get rid of the statues of the losers. Okay? You got a Confederate flag waving. You're saying, hey, I'm a loser. I'm with John Oliver on that. You're a big effing loser with your Confederate flag. Confederate flag, what would that be like? That would be like waving, I don't know, who loses all of the time? Let's say, for instance, you know how the Harlem Globetrotters would always play the Washington Generals? That would be like you unironically waving. It's worse than this, but I just think this is funny because the Washington Generals always lost to the Harlem Globetrotters. Always. That was like the joke. The Washington Generals, meaning that there were, George Washington was a general, but these guys are kind of just lame. They're general. They're generally bad. And the Harlem Globetrotters do all these fun tricks, and it was fun to watch them. Meadowlark Lemon and all of them. Incredible, entertaining athletes. But it's like you were unironically a fan of the Washington Generals, man. That's my team. My favorite basketball team ever. Screw those Harlem Globetrotters for being excellent and hilariously entertaining. They're always dunking on me. But I am a Washington Generals fan. Am I right, Travis? You and me, let's go check out the Washington Generals. If you guys don't know who the Harlem Globetrotters were, perhaps you didn't grow up in the tri-state area of New York, the metropolitan area like I did. And it's just, Harlem is in Manhattan. So perhaps I know them just because I grew up in New York, or I don't know how national they were. But they were a group of hilarious basketball players who could do every trick. They could spin the ball on their finger and then roll the ball. They could juggle the balls and everything. And they could throw the ball behind them and get it in the thing. And they would always taunt and play with the Washington Generals. They would kind of keep throwing the ball around and dunking on the Washington Generals. It was fun to watch. It's also, it's part of the gig. It's part of the show. So, that's not the best analogy, but I think it's funny. Yeah, Globetrotters were amazing. K-Ferg on YouTube says, the Detroit Lions, my team makes... Yeah, I got a Detroit shirt on now. Yeah, K-Ferg. The Detroit Lions are kind of, aren't the Detroit Tigers? Aren't they they got lions and tigers in Detroit. Oh my. Oh, right. That's right. Scooby-Doo had the Harlem Globetrotters. I know my Harlem Globetrotters from the fantastic television program Scooby-Doo. It was animated. There was a dog who talked. Scooby-Doo, man. Zoinks. That was a fun show, yeah. They were even funny as animated characters. I do believe, if I am not completely mistaken, there was an episode of Gilligans Island with the Harlem Globetrotters. This is what I love about Aristotle Full Throttle the show. We go on a tear and we end up in places we never thought we'd set out to land on. Gilligans Island, Harlem Globetrotters. Yeah, that was good. You know what my favorite thing about the Gilligan's Island television program from the 70s, I believe, 60s and 70s, was they would always have some guest star show up on this island that they could not get off of. And somehow the guest stars were jerkish enough to leave the island without telling nobody about, oh look, there's Scatman Carruthers in this episode too. That's hilarious. So people would show up to the island and there'd be the castaways, and then they'd be a whole episode and they'd get to know them and everybody would be in their true character. You've got the professor, Marianne, Gilligan. Well, you've got the movie star. You've got all of them. Mr. and Mrs. Howell. And they'd all act, and they were all fabulous actors, actually, on that show. But then people would show up. They'd end up doing a whole episode with it, and then the guest star would escape the island and not tell anybody that there were people trapped on the island. They'd leave them for dead. Oh, my gosh. This looks like it had also Martin Landau in this episode. Wow. They really... What a dumb premise for a show. People cast away on an island, but then people keep showing up and having adventures with them. Remember when they would do the Gilligan's Island movie of the weeks? Those were fun. But today on Aristotle Full Throttle, we're talking about movies. We talk about movies every day, 5 days a week at noon Pacific Standard Time on YouTube and on Instagram. Why do we have this trope that keeps coming back? Well, I think we've realized that it's a white guilt thing. And I get it. There's some white guilt going on right now. I'd say there's white guilt and black frustration right now. But there's also a catharsis. There's a euphoria going around. Everyone's feeling something. The emotions are complex and they're simultaneous. We feel all of the things at once, and it's okay to feel all of these things because we're processing a lot of things for the first time, a lot of us. Some of this stuff we've never confronted on this level. People are fed up. Why we gotta have racism? Why? So many people right now are saying that. They're like, gosh, we just gotta end this now. It's so freaking annoying. It's a plague. We have an actual plague and a racism plague. They're both plagues, really. They're both detrimental to health. If you hate something and if you're among the hated, it's just toxic for everyone. It's going to be a toxicity in society that we need to erase or at least grow from or learn from or identify when it happens and work with it to get out of a situation, resolve it. It's going to happen, people. I feel very skeptical on a lot of levels because I'm frustrated. I feel cynical sometimes when I say, oh, look, it's Black Lives Matters week. We got a week to dedicate to this because you know what? There's no schools, so there's no school shootings. We don't need to spend time on school shootings right now. We're good on that. We're all inside. None of us have a job. I guess now we've got the time to defend the rights of our fellow humans. Now's the time. I guess I could do it now. I've got nothing better to do. I know that sounds cynical. And I know that a lot of white folks right now, and I get it. I get it. There's a guilty feeling. You might feel guilty. It's okay. You don't have to, because maybe it's not just you. Instead of feeling guilty, maybe we should just feel proactive and actually work on something. But there's not a lot of this, but I'm encountering some of this. Some people are like, yeah, but, like I'm here now, so this is a good thing, right? Like, now we can actually do something, right? Just allow for there to be a period of people going, what took you so long? Allow that to happen. Don't be like, well, I'm here now. You should be happy about it. No. We're not going to be immediately happy about something like that when you've taken forever. So just allow for the emotions to work through. Have some patience. Because Lord knows black people have had patience with white people. It's sad to watch people fight. It's sad to watch this happen. It's a sad thing. That's why we're trying so hard to overcome it right now. All of us, we're all getting together and going, enough is enough. This bickering, this constant fighting, this constant trying to oppress another group. That's tired. That shit is tired. It's old. That is old thinking. We're beyond that. K-Ferg brings up Avatar. Yeah, absolutely. These aliens, Avatar is a perfect example. These blue aliens, they didn't know what to do until this generic Sam Worthington type. I call him Jai Courtney Sam Worthington, Courtney Jai Courtney Sam Worthington. The only way I can tell them apart is that Sam Worthington's head and could fit inside of Jai Courtney's head because Jai Courtney has a gigantic head. It's almost Tito Ortiz level. But it does feel convenient, Ange. I agree. I just feel like right now is the convenient time and the most opportune time for a lot of people to jump on board of this. And that's cool. Just, I guess we all have to act now when it's good for your schedule, because I feel like, and this again might be my skepticism and cynicism, I feel like in about a day or so, people might get over it. They might be over it. They're going to be like, I'm over it now. I did the Black Lives Matter thing. What's 2020? What's 2020 got in store for me next week? There's going to be a new thing. We were all stuck inside with the corona. Now everybody, that pent up frustration of being stuck inside, everybody's taken to the streets because it's reactionary. You swing really far in one direction, then you're going to swing back all the way over to K-pop. From one direction to BTS. That's a joke. But what happens is, when you're in an extreme like this, you're going to swing back extremely hard the other way and end up in the streets all on top of each other because it's in the name of a bigger cause, which is human rights, but it's also at the same time the perfect opportunity for an airborne virus to continually spread. And I hope that the spread of the virus is not catastrophic. But who knows? People in Arizona are like, uh-oh, we're seeing a spike now. It's been 1 month since we opened up, and all hands on deck. So watch out, guys. Be careful. Wash your hands, wash your face, wash your face's hands, and wash your hands' face. Ange N.O., I'm the only black yoga instructor at my studio, and the white guilt is just exhausting. I tell you, Ange, I don't know about you. And I love my friends, and I'm happy to and lucky to have them. But sometimes, let me not stutter. Sometimes it's funny because I can tell when I'm getting a lot of texts and calls, how are you, man? How are you? That maybe some of my friends saw a meme to reach out to their brown and black friends and are doing that. Two things can exist. I'm very grateful and happy, but I'm also a little it feels a little pedantic. It feels a little condescending. It's not about me right now, guys, necessarily. Which is funny. I'm just sitting here going, I'm watching all my friends who are really moved and impassioned by the movement. Some of them happen to be white, and then they're posting things like, I really need to listen now, so I am going to listen, and let me tell you that I need to tell you, let me tell you that I'm listening. I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you about me listening. Okay, how about listening? How about just doing that? So part of me is like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna let you do that, and that's fine. And I'm gonna talk. If you want to listen, I'll be talking. That's fine. I'll talk for as long as you'll listen, and hopefully you'll listen for as long as I'll talk. But my skepticism gets the best of me sometimes. I want this to be good. I want this to be a really strong, impactful change, guys. I want this to change things. However, the love and the feeling and the vibe, the hope that so many people have about this movement, white and black, for me personally, is like, it feels a little misguided. Let's look at the history of the world, part 1 here, which is a movie by Mel Brooks, and it's hilarious. It's good to be the king. Let's look at the history of the Inquisition. What a show. Guys, you guys know what I'm talking about. If you're a fan of movies, and if you're a fan of movies, that's why you're watching Aristotle Full Throttle every day at noon on Instagram and YouTube. Live streaming, we talk back and forth. What's up, Eva? What's up, Matt Thrower? What's up, Tristan V 2019? Welcome y'all to the show. Just talking about how the feeling, the vibe, this like, oh, it's gonna be different this time. Sure is. This time is the time we end racism in 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. Let's see how long this lasts, but let's be diligent. Let's work on this every day, because shit's annoying. We got to stop with we have to actively work against racism where it is It's there. It's systemic. It's part of a system. It's literally, if you look at the police system, police, what do? It's in the name, guys. I'll give you a hint. They police. So when you send a police person to a situation that does not necessarily require a police officer, like maybe a mental health situation, maybe someone's having a problem with drugs and alcohol, you want to send maybe a counselor to that situation, someone who is trained specifically in that. And this is why we talk about defunding the police. That doesn't mean get rid of all police. There might be cases where you need force, but we're finding that those cases are much more rare than they are not. George Floyd was a man who was under arrest and in custody and murdered while he was in a prone position. There was no reason to bring force into that situation. There could have been other things that they did, clearly. We don't need police at this level, if you think about it. We need more counselors. We need more caseworkers. We need more people who can actually intervene at an earlier age. We need better education. Let's take that money away from police who, by the way, they want to police. They want to go to a place, apply force, imprison people. This is their job. They're like, oh, you did something wrong. You broke a law. Whatever it is you're doing, we're going to put you in jail. We're going to arrest you. We're going to make arrests. We're going to ticket you. We're going to put you in jail and in prison. And this is a perpetual cycle. This is what police are good for. If we start to realize that drug addicts need drug addiction therapy, if we realize that mental illness needs some kind of counselor or intervention, medication, we can send experts to take care of these problems instead of throwing every mentally ill person, every drug addict, every person with one, fixing every problem with a hammer. When all you got is a hammer, every problem is a nail. Yes, social workers indeed. Hospitals have doctors that specialize. Why doesn't our police have those kinds of levels of response? Absolutely, Gripside. Why can't there be a particular department in... There are particular departments in police forces, but it's not distributed the way it should be. We're just over applying force to the streets, intimidation to the streets. I can tell you many times in my life where the solution for so many people was to call the cops. And it hasn't been that way necessarily for me in certain situations. Because, and a lot of times when I've called the cops a few times living in Los Angeles, and I get it, guys, you're a cop. They talk about the paperwork. They joke about, oh, well, if you draw your gun, that's like 3 days of paperwork. It's like, okay, we're not talking about that. But I see that. I call the cops a few times, and they've literally shown up and said essentially nothing. They were like, well, I don't know, go down to the station tomorrow and fill out a report, which is that translates to, man, I got like 2 hours left on my shift, and if I deal with this, then I gotta write it up and report it and make a record of it. You know what? Why don't you do that with our administrative services tomorrow at the station? They don't want to do paperwork. It's understandable on some level, but it's also stupid because it's part of their job. So soft power versus hard power. Yeah. That was my favorite combination in Street Fighter 2. Soft power. Those boards don't work on water unless you've got power. I'm quoting a movie there. The Inquisition, here we go. Just not a, yeah. I tell you though, listen, white folks, y'all don't have to feel guilty right now. You didn't grow up with segregation like your parents or your grandparents might have. You didn't. If you're young today and you're white, just freaking just go like, you know what? I'm going to recognize that there are differences between people here, and there has been inequities in society, and I'm just going to work on it from now on. From this moment on, let's just work on it. Let's just go, all right, this shit's real. Let's acknowledge it's real. That's the first problem. The first part of fixing a problem, finding a solution, is identifying that there actually is a problem. And guys, I've literally spent my entire life, and it's very infrequent, but I've found myself in many conversations throughout my experience as being, I don't know, burnt sienna, brown. As a brown dude in America, I've found myself in many conversations where I was like, yeah, well, you know, because the police, they like to apply unnecessary force and unequal force in their toward black and brown Americans and to some white folks. I'm not saying, listen, when I say white folks, when I say black people, when I say people of color, I'm referring to the general problem and not necessarily you, not necessarily anybody, just the broader sense. There are white folks who I've spoken to who just want to disagree that these things actually exist. And it's really easy to deny a reality that has never been part of your reality. It's easy to do that. I'm going to be like, listen, I don't believe in menstrual cramps. I mean, I don't have a uterus, but come on, ladies. Really? Is it that hard? Is it that bad? I mean, every 3 or 4 weeks, you guys, come on. Is it really that bad, though? How does that feel? How does that feel, ladies? And that's very true for ladies. There's male privilege in society, and women are also a marginalized group in the United States. So when I'm referring to black and brown and marginalized folks, these are the people who I'm talking about. Women, black and brown, and Asian. Asian people are black and brown. They have a brownish hue in general. Can we agree? People of color. South Asian folks, Middle Eastern folks who are a darker shade than perhaps white or pink or peach in our society. And I think y'all know that I'm saying that. I just want to be explicit about it. Yeah, God forbid you have endometriosis. Yeah, it's very true. Come on, ladies, just take a cup of Tylenol and, I don't know, do some breathing exercise. It's not that bad, is it? It's like, well, it's actually a part of reality. It's part of a woman's reality to experience this. And it's easy for me to say that it's not that bad. That's the point I'm trying to make. There are people who have a reality that may not be yours, but you cannot discount their reality necessarily if you have not experienced it firsthand. Perhaps listen and learn from each other. I can understand right now that there is a feeling among, as Dave Chappelle would say, the whites, particularly, I guess, older white men in America. It's like, this is the case we're talking about. It's a case-by-case basis, and I'm talking about particularly the United States. White dudes who are a bit older in America who are among the privileged class. And you might disagree. You're like, well, there are poor white dudes too. There are poor white people just as there are poor black people. And I'm like, well, yeah, but in America, you intrinsically have a better shot if you're born white. This is a statistical fact. I don't want to get even into the argument on it. Just look up the study after study. You take a resume, an identical resume. Two people who went to Harvard have the exact same work history. You can do this experiment on your own if you like. Put a white sounding name at the top of one, Kevin O'Connor, I don't know. And then you put a black sounding name at the top of the other one. I don't know what a black sounding name is necessarily, but I think we can all imagine the stereotypical black sounding names. And you just take the same exact resume and you send them out to like 100 places 75% will call back the person who has the white sounding name on the top of a resume that is identical to another one. This is just a one example of how that works. This is a fact. This is a study that is actually reproduced very often, and you can read about it. That shows that endemically, people here in the United States have a bias. There's a bias, at least. And that's a problem. So what I'm saying here is that older white folks in the United States right now have been up among the privileged class. Now, let's imagine, and this goes both ways, guys. I can also imagine, I'm going to imagine what it's like. And I want us to all practice this. And it's very easy. It's just empathy and critical thinking. And if you do the two things on a regular basis, I think it can work to combat the ills of society in general. This is the ethos of this show. We talk about movies and we joke around and we make fun of things, but also, you know, you got to spread some critical thinking and empathy exercises. One thing is to imagine what it's like to be the other person. I'm imagining what it's like to be an older white dude in America, and my whole life things have been fine, pretty much. This is the instance of a white person whose life, not every white person, but this white man that I'm imagining in America, who has done pretty fine and has never really had to deal with like police violence or feeling the threat of society trying to marginalize them. There's no pressures kind of pushing them out of the mainstream. Now this person has been privileged in America their whole life. And suddenly to them, maybe it feels like it's sudden to them that, this group of people, well, they've not had the same experience as me. These black folks haven't had the same experience as me, but how can that be? This is America. Obviously, everybody's afforded equal rights. I mean, come on. It's on the books is that way, but it's just not in practice, because just because you change the words in the books doesn't mean you've actually changed the institution or the history of those institutions. Just because you've changed some words and verbiage doesn't mean you've changed attitudes and behaviors. So, as this fictional older white man is thinking, well, perhaps this older white man does feel the pressure that, my day is coming to an end. My day as part of this sort of having this advantage is going away. That's if you acknowledge that there's an advantage. A lot of people won't. And that's a real concern. I can feel that. I can say, hey, listen, I get it, old white person. You might be feeling that society is changing too much for you to deal with. But, the harsh side of me is like, suck it up. But the welcome to my world, B. I used the B word in my head. But not with my mouth. But, yeah. So, but the other part of me is like, listen, okay, we get it. We get that you might feel this way. We got to have compassion going in both directions. I hate to say it. I hate to say it. We got to have compassion, damn it. But it goes both ways, and we have to say, look, and what there was an incredible speech that this woman gave the other day, and I saw it on John Oliver, and I'm going to drop the link in the YouTube chat because it was one of the most powerful things I've seen recently. Kimberly Jones, she made a statement, and maybe I'll just play it for you because she was played at the end of last week tonight. I'm going to drop the link here. guys, by the way, I have 3 keyboards. Little aside, I have this keyboard, which broke. This is the Mac keyboard I have. These 2 keys decided to break. They were the J and the K. Oh, not the J and the K keys. JK. But the K and the, I guess, the semicolon or something, those keys died. So I ordered a new keyboard. This one, which is dope. It's got a number pad. It's really cool. And it's actually great, except I spilled water on it a couple weeks ago. And now a few of the keys just start, you touch a key and then all of these things start happening on the screen. And it's almost like it's possessed by demons. And then I got this crappy keyboard for like $10, and it's crappy because you get what you pay for. So now I have 3 keyboards on my desk, and I have to use them sometimes because this key doesn't have an escape key, and then I had to problems. Technology, it sucks. Kimberly Jones, guys. She's phenomenal. Take a listen to this. Let me just catch up with some of these statements, and then I'll play you Kimberly Jones because we only have a couple minutes left. 99% sure my white-sounding name is how I got most of my jobs, especially yeah, I get called in. I mean, I guess people want to see what an Aristotle looks like, so I would get called in, and then they were like, oh, this is what an Aristotle looks like. Maybe perhaps not at all what I was imagining. Some people assume I'm Greek on account of the curly hair, I guess, and the name. But I am a quarter Italian, so a little bit Mediterranean. You could see that in the, maybe a little bit of, I'm growing my official Aristotle beard. I have a white police friend who doesn't believe that there is systemic racism. I do my best to empathize with him. He thinks that the system isn't fair, but not racist. No, it's definitely anti-black, the system. I don't know how many times you have to see someone get, an unarmed black person get murdered by police. I don't know how many times you have to see that. I don't know how many times you have to see the Cooperses in Central Park, a white Cooper calling the cops on a black Cooper. You guys will know what I'm talking about. There's a woman in the park walking her dog in the brambles, and a man who is a bird watcher, a man who happens to be black, was like, hey, lady, don't bring your dog over to the brambles because there are protected species of birds in these bushes and you'll scare them away, and this is actually a haven for them to come in this loud, noisy city. So why would you let your dog run off a leash into this area where these birds that I am coming to watch in their habitat? Long story short, she called the cops on him and said that she was being approached by being intimidated by a black man in the park, and started to act like she was afraid. If that's not knowing, if that's not an awareness that the police will show up because you stated that you're being attacked, approached by a black man, if that's not being aware of the power you have over that person in society, that police will come in that instance. Anyway, we have a minute and a half, so I'm going to just play this because it's about that long. Listen to what she says.
How can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the fuck do I give a shit about burning the fucking Football Hall of Fame, about burning a fucking Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give a fuck. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own, our bootstraps in Tulsa, and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so fuck your Target. Fuck your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. and it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge. How can...
If I was religious, I'd say amen. Thank you, guys. See you tomorrow. What's up, YouTube? It's just us. Oh, it didn't save my episode on Instagram. Doesn't like to save the ones where I talk about race. Instagram is so wonky. You spend an hour making a show, and then it's like, oh, we forgot to save that one. Sorry, oops. Whatever. That's fine. Yeah. Oh, well. That did not get saved. Savior, Savior. My band has a song called Savior, Savior. It's a good song. I like it. I'm biased. I co-wrote that song. Thank you guys so much for being you. There's no us if there's no you. You guys put the you in us. For sure. Yeah, that's a bummer. Stupid Instagram doesn't save my damn show. Oh well. Hopefully people watching it got the gist, got the feeling of it. We need to talk. That's what we need to do. Oh, you guys can find the music on Spotify. It's all up on now on Spotify. It's all music I wrote when I was like a baby child. Here, let me get you the Spotify link to artist. To my band called Veda. Share. Copy artist link. Here you guys go. You guys can enjoy some of my earlier work as a musician. And now as an activist. A movie activist. I don't know. I feel really passionate about this, guys. You know why? Because you live your whole life as a brown or black person, and you start to go, hey, you know what? Maybe I should start sharing my experience with people who have similar experiences or who haven't had this experience at all, and we'll feel it together. We'll move forward with this. We'll understand each other. Yes, guys. Yeah, it's Veda. It is an alternate spelling for Veda, and you guys can check that out. It's I'm very proud of that work. That was the first half of my career playing music. I love music, and I got to tell you this. I'm going to leave you with this, guys. There's a lot of racism in different fields. There's a lot of segregation in different fields. Interestingly enough, as a musician, I would travel a lot, and I would go to different places all over the country, and I would encounter all different kinds of people. But, you know, there's one field that I've been in and lucky enough to have been in that I did not feel. I didn't feel that there was as much bias or racism in music, because music is an equalizer. If you're good at it, if you play something that I dig, that's all that matters. If I play something that you dig, we can groove together. So you can't really find a drummer or a guitarist or a bass player or a singer who doesn't borrow from every style, who doesn't borrow from every walk of life. We listen to music. It's what connects us all. It's what is a great equalizer. It's pure emotion. Music to me is pure emotion. And that's universal. And it translates through every culture, through music. We feel what the other person is feeling when they're playing music. When Al Green is singing, we feel what he's singing. When Janis Joplin is singing, we feel what she's singing. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, said one great pedophilic musician. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Music will include you. If music is racist, then it's probably lame. It's probably a lame style of music that doesn't connect with many people. If there are racist musicians, and I really can't think of good musicians, like high-end musicians who have a deep hatred for, let's say, black people. Because guess what? American music, rock and roll music, blues, jazz, it all comes from West African black music. It comes from the cradle of civilization, essentially, or the origin of all humans. It comes from black folks. It comes from Africa. Sorry, guys. Rock and roll can be traced right back to villages in Africa and folk songs in African music. Those types of intervals, let's say. If you know anything about music, you know there are intervals. There's a seventh, there's a flat sixth, there's all types of intervals that create a jazzy, bluesy feel, and those intervals were sung by people who were brought over on boats to work in fields for free, and the only thing that some of these people had was their voice, and they would sing a lot of their original folk songs from their cultures, and these songs were translated. The vocalizations that these folks would make, these a cappella songs that they would sing in the fields, were translated to instruments, to horns. So a lot of the blue notes, the jazz, the blues got translated to horn players, and horns started to use these intervals and these melodies in their music, which created jazz, which started the blues. Those pieces, those styles of music originate from black Americans. And that's a fact, Jack. Popcorn Passport would be played by Sidney Poitier in a movie. I think I would be played by Mario Van Peebles, or Ario Van Peebles, as I would call him. I managed to comparisons to Larden, the Seven Dust, and Tracy Chapman. That's pretty good combination. Let me catch up on these. Just catching up on some comments here. Country music, how it's arranged. Yeah, country music too. You know, you've got a lot of bluegrass music that is based in the blues and in a lot of those harmonies and melodies. Country music, blues, jazz, R&B especially. And people who knew a bit more about music, I would get to be mentioning Morrissey influence by the way of prejudice is benignly influenced the way we heard. Singing and playing everything. Who is that? Jeff Buckley, Murray Lightburn, Morrissey. You can trace a lot of the music to different parts of the world, but particularly blues and jazz are from Western Africa. And guess what, guys? That the style of rap that's like this, that type of rapping, which is very popular in the last 5 years or so. It's like the way to rap is to do triplets. It's not just called a triplet, it's called a Scotch snap. And guess where the Scotch snap comes from? Celtic music. It's Celtic. So rap today is borrowing from Celtic music. Go figure. This is why the world is a melting pot. This is why music has no borders. This is why music is beautiful when you study someone's music that you did not grow up with. It's pretty freaking phenomenal. Mumble rap. Baba da baba da baba da baba, and then it goes halftime. You guys know what I'm talking about. Mumble rap. Mumble rap is Celtic. Remember the... I'm going to leave you with this, guys. Remember Lord of the Dance? Why can't they use their hands? Why is it so cool to keep your hands bound to your side? Why don't they chop their arms off and just dance like that? You guys rock. I appreciate you. I will see you tomorrow. I'm all out of gas. I got to clean my kitchen and go for a run and look for work because there is none. That rhymes. I do that all the times. I'm Aristotle Full Throttle, your bro in the know with the fro, and I'll see you tomorrow.